and white Spider-Man, or are you in the 2010s with black Hispanic Miles Morales, the ultimate Spider-Man? At the weekend, Marvel Comics sales boss seemed to admit that when it came to the company's push to reimagine their A-list of comic characters with a modern ethnic and gender diversity, the buying public were turning up their noses. And this is a problem that punches far above its weight, because today's hit Marvel comic is next decade's blockbuster movie. So is it true? Superheroes have enjoyed their greatest popularity during times of global strife. Escapism sells, and so Marvel, owned by Disney, has worked hard at changing the men behind the mask to appeal to millennial fans who aren't just white and male. In 2011, the mixed-race teenager Miles Morales became Spider-Man. In 2014, Jane Foster became the latest Thor. And Kamala Khan, a Pakistani-American from Jersey City, was introduced as Ms. Marvel. In 2016, 16-year-old Riri Williams took over the Iron Man mantle from Tony Stark. But are these reboots driving away the core comic book fans? This weekend, a senior Marvel executive, David Gabriel, appeared to suggest that they are.
We saw the sales of any character that was diverse, any character that was new, our female characters, anything that was not a core Marvel character, people were turning their nose up against.
He rode back after the furore, but the damage was done. So what's the real picture? In 2014, 9 out of 10 bestsellers were Marvel superhero comics. But last year, after the major character revamp, Marvel had just 3 in the top 10. So clearly, something is going on. Perhaps this is just about sheer comic numbers. Between October 2015 and February this year, Marvel launched an astonishing 104 new titles. So perhaps it's not surprising that a quarter of those have flopped. But for Marvel, the real money is not in comics anymore, it's in TV and movies. Their Luke Cage series on Netflix is pretty much the only example of diversity in the Marvel live-action stable. The question is, will the movies catch up with the comics, or is that too great a risk? Well, we asked Marvel for a statement, and while they stated that Mr. Gabriel had been taken out of context, they did not give us a full statement. Well, joining me now from New York is comic book critic and freelance writer a.k.a. a.k.a. Benny Potter, who hosts a popular YouTube channel on comic books, joins me from Colorado. Good evening to you both. a.k.a. first of all, do you think that Marvel does have a problem with diversity?
Marvel does have a problem with diversity, but not the problem that they think they have. The problem that Marvel has with diversity is that they literally can't commit to the audience that they're trying to build. Even in the rhetoric that you see that Mr. Gabriel is using in terms of defining them as the core audience or the core group, that suggests that, you know, the people that they're marketing to are actually pretty much straight white men. But if you're trying to actually, you know, expand your audience and you know, bring them different heroes, different people, like people of different genders, people of different ethnic groups, but you're still marketing to the same people, then you're not really trying.
So, Benny Potter, would you accept that Marvel's not really trying to do diversity in a way that's meaningful and actually comes into the core of the comics?
Yeah, I mean, that's...
No, I actually agree with that.
Benny Potter, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually agree with that. I mean, a lot of the new diverse stories, in my opinion, are really incredible, but they just kind of rushed out trying to just catch on to the diversity thing instead of easing the characters into the old core fan base that they did have. And I feel like they're just backing out too early. Now that they've done it, they're just not letting it go all the way through.
But what about the first Muslim superhero to have her own name, Kamala Khan? Do you think that she is going to be a big seller? It doesn't appear to be so, Benny.
Kamala Khan, she's actually one of the more popular characters out of this entire diverse front that Marvel's pulling off right now. And some of her stories are some of the best ones that they've put out in the recent years.
So in that case, Jam, what do you think the right strategy should be, given that, by and large, it's not about the comics, it is about the movies to come. They have to bed these things down. What is the best way to go about it?
I mean, the best way to go about it is to actually commit to building a broader audience. And that would be breaking things down to the very basic level. So for example, the way the comics are distributed is something called the direct market. And the way the direct market works is basically that the only things that count towards sales in terms of the things that matter are the comics that are pre-ordered 3 months in advance. So, to you or to a random person who doesn't know anything about comics, they'll say to themselves, oh, I saw the Black Panther movie. How do I get that book? If they went to Waterstones, they could buy that trade, but it wouldn't matter. The only way for it to matter is for them to go to a comic book shop and to pre-order the book 3 months in advance, and then their purchase counts. So all of these complications, pretty much mean that new readers are alienated from the process in terms of having their voices heard, and B, requires them to go through a kind of system that has traditionally alienated non-white males to begin with.
But talking about a more traditional view of the comic, does it matter if people actually, Benny, prefer Captain America? Does that matter if they're buying comics in sufficient numbers?
I'm sorry, I missed the question on that one.
On the question of what you might say is the traditional old-fashioned white male audience, does it matter if what they want is Captain America, if Captain America creates big sales?
I mean, it doesn't really matter if they want Captain America. I don't think I understand the question fully, what you're asking.
What I'm saying is...
Are you saying that people want to go out and buy it?
If you have a white Captain America and that's what people buy, that doesn't matter, does it? I mean, it's not just about diversity, it's what actually what sells Marvel comics. Why
well, yes, and that's part of the issue, is they need to, the books need to sell. And in my opinion, they just didn't ease the audience into a lot of these characters. They instead of going through a period where the legacy characters trained all these new individuals who were taking over their mantles, they instead just tried to be like, well, hey, Riri Williams is coming out with a comic book in 3 months. Don't you want to pre-order this to follow in step with what she was saying?
Yeah, but the thing, Jam, is that Marvel Comics launched 104 comics last year and a quarter failed. It's all about the sale models, and if the sale model doesn't work, then you're not going to have this variety of characters, are you?
Well, I mean, it's a question of what you mean by if the sales aren't working. Charles Paul Hoffman at CBR did some really great journalism in terms of looking at the actual numbers that were released by Comic-Con.com. And he basically found that even of the top 10 selling Marvel comics, only 3 of them are actually what you would consider diverse, which is really just characters that are marginalized people. The rest of them are actually your quote-unquote standard white male characters. And those are actually the ones that have seen the lowest sales in terms of the biggest drops.
Thank you both very much indeed. Now, Newsnight.